All right, Shaggy. So on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, realistic expectations for the 2023-2024 season and the Colorado Avalanche from this past season. Who was maybe our biggest and most pleasant surprise? And are we going to have to hear Sidney Crosby to the Avalanche all season long? I hope not. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. I'm Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Make sure you follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. Follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And why not subscribe to our subtext where you can chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. Link to that in the show notes below. All right, sir. So we're going to jump into a lot of kind of interesting and fun, maybe pressing topics for the Avalanche. A little bit of both. A little bit of looking back into this past season and looking ahead to next season. And a lot of these questions came from Instagram. Put up a mailbag up there, and it was robust. There was a lot of people. I put this up the day after the season ended, so obviously emotions were high. And you got a lot of people asking about what's going to happen with the Avalanche and free agents, and you got a lot of New Hook and Byram, and which we just discussed in the yesterday's episode, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot going on, and we'll get to as many as we can get to. If we got to spill this over into a couple episodes, we will. But we can dive right in, unless there's anything that you want to address before we talk about some of these topics.
May the 4th be with you all.
Yes, exactly. Kyle and I, big Star Wars fans. So
these are the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, right here. Yeah. I got to go to the Disney shop. They always put a new Disney key up, and I usually purchase that thing every year, and along with other stuff. I don't know. I'll have to see what's up there this year.
Yeah, they got the new Jedi Young Adventures show that my kids are very excited about.
Yes, that starts today, May the 4th. Yes, which is so like, we all know how that's going to end. It's just not
Order 66.
I think they're going to change the ending of that. But yeah, so all right, we could literally be locked on Star Wars today, and I'd be fine with that. But we'll stick to the task at hand, or the team at hand. Yeah, and we'll talk about some of these really good questions. So, do you want to start with the past season, or do you want to look forward?
Yeah, you know what? Well, let's address some of that that we just endured.
Well, it's not in a bad way. It's not in a bad way. So this comes from Matt DH182. I have to think that's a Blink-182 reference. And he asked, who was your surprise standout player for this past season?
Honestly,
and I do want to say, is where you jump in, we will be doing grades. We'll probably start that next week, where I will post on Twitter. I can't do polls on Instagram. I think you can on YouTube. So on the community tab for YouTube, we can do that. So I don't know no, I can do polls on Instagram. I put up in the story. Yeah.
Yep.
Duh. So there we go. So if you're on, whether you follow us on no matter what social media, we will start doing grades for probably next week. We'll start that. So go ahead. What's your surprise standout from this past season?
Honestly, it's a softball now. I did not anticipate Georgiev being the caliber of goalie that we got going in. So where our friendship was tested over this guy, and then and
our friendship was tested when you decided to wear a Devils jersey.
Yeah,
in yesterday's episode. But
well, choose better teams in the East, Chris. But he honestly he kept us in that series that we endured. He kept us in many games. And with all the injuries and everything the Avalanche endured, he was the solid rock that the Avalanche just kind of rested on this year.
Yeah, that's the one that your mind immediately goes to when someone asks you who's the surprise player of the Avalanche. I would say I'll give you let me see, I'll give you 3.
Okay.
I would say he would be my number 1, right? Number 2, I would say JT Compher. I don't think people really expected that kind of season from him, mainly because he never even came close to what he had for this year. And that'll be I think that's going to be an easy A for him when we do get to, we do those alphabetically, by the way. But let me get to, because I want to make sure I got it. I think it was at 52 points for the season. Yeah, 52 points, 17 goals, 35 assists. So, and before that, his high was 33. So, I mean, he beat his career high by a mile, and he needed to. We needed someone like him to step up. So I think that was a pleasant surprise. And lastly, in some weird way, I'm going to say Mikko Rantanen.
Interesting.
Not because we didn't think he could put up numbers like that. We kind of did, but let me get to his card here real quickly, because his first 100-point season, obviously, and he's been in that before that. He last year had a 92-point season, and early on in his career he touched 80 twice. But this was his best season by far.
Yeah.
So it's not like a surprise. It was like, wow, I didn't see this coming. I think it's more of like it's his best season ever. Is kind of it's a good surprise. I'm not trying to put a downturn on it at all, and he's not capable of doing that. But with all the injuries that the Avalanche had this year, and obviously the focus was on him for every opponent, for him to still put up those numbers is incredibly impressive.
And that's interesting. Like, you're 2 and 3. I have a completely different 2 and 3, and Mikko being at 3 is not really that surprising. Like, before the season even started, one of your hot takes was Mikko Rantanen could be in the running for the Hart.
Yeah. And I mean, is he going to be in the top 3? I don't think so. But
he put up a caliber of season. If Boston didn't exist and a couple other things didn't exist this year,
like injuries, like Avalanche injuries. If the Avalanche were a relatively healthy team, he's Nathan MacKinnon. He probably beats Nathan MacKinnon. He could beat Nathan MacKinnon in points if he had a full team that and the focus wasn't to do what he did when the focus was always on him. It was great. It's impressive. So what are your other 2?
Evan Rodriguez at number 2. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, he went from a nice pickup to, my goodness, I'm so glad he's a member of the Avalanche.
Yeah.
And number 3 was Dennis Mulligan.
Yeah.
Went from let's look this guy up on Hockeypedia. Let's look up his Hockey DB stats, and then where has this guy been? And look at this guy's speed.
Yeah. Yep. And he's going to be we'll see what they do with him. He's going to be a RFA with arbitration rights. So they have his rights. So I don't think he's going to go anywhere, but we were talking yesterday, like for some of these restricteds and even UFAs that they bring in, what's the dollar amount and what's the term? So I kind of want to see what they offer him.
Yep.
So I think he's good. He's one that I would like to see stick around for a few years, because I thought he did very, very well. So yeah,
he did.
Those are 3 good ones. Why don't we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back with more of these questions, and we'll definitely talk about next season. And like I teased in the beginning, we got a lot of people asking about Sidney Crosby.
Never heard of those.
Temper those expectations, people, please. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And if you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need to buy and taste the best protein bar literally ever. And now those are Built Bars. You got to try them. And if you're like me and like Kyle, you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, well, we have just the thing: Built Bars and Built Bar Puffs. and Built Bars are healthy and they taste amazing. And why do they taste so good? Well, for starters, they are covered in 100% real dark chocolate, and they come in incredibly delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter puff brownie, and cookies and cream. And Kyle, I told you not to check their website because they have a limited edition flavor up there right now. And I hesitate to tell you what it is because I feel like you're just going to log off and run and go get it and not finish this episode with me. You ready? You ready for it?
Bring it.
It is animal cookie.
Oh,
it's
my
basically
Lord.
animal cracker flavored. Come on now, people. That is a limited edition flavor. So I don't think that one's going to hang around for too long. It's not, I don't believe it's a puff. I think it's your regular bar.
No.
So animal cookie Built Bar. Kyle's art. Look at him.
Yeah,
if
keep
he's
telling the wonderful people about
built.com.
these Built Bars. I'm about
He's
to order
going
some.
there right now and ordering, and he's probably putting in that locked 15 code right now, and you get 15% off of your order. I think he seriously is ordering right now.
Do I look like a joking man?
I just saw the screen shine up on his face. Wow. All right. So yeah, go get that bad boy because that won't last for too long. And if you want to get some other flavors, definitely go into your local Sam's or Walmart and bring home a box of Built Bars today. All right. Order in.
It's in my cart.
It's all right. Let's jump back into some of these questions. So we'll go in. We did last year in terms of players who we thought had a surprising season, good season. So what's his name? Juju B 4393 asked realistic expectations for the 2023-2024 Avalanche season. Can they win the cup next year? Go for it.
You know, there's a lot of variables. But again, with that core that immediately puts you in the upper half of the division.
Yep.
And you don't know what the Stanley Cup's going to look like. We were talking, I think on Monday's episode, like if the Avalanche would have continued on this path, it could have been a possible sweep in the Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter who the representative is in the West. Could that possibly still be the case? And would that be enough to shift power in the West? So you don't know what the West is going to look like, but if you have a healthy, everybody hear that word, that H word, we haven't used a lot this year.
Yeah.
Healthy core, you're automatically in the top 3 of the Central, maybe top 5 of the West.
It's such a difficult question to answer right now because we've been saying for the past few episodes, you know, this team is going to look very different next year. So it's tough to answer it because of that. Obviously, when free agency dies down and the draft is over and you kind of get the semblance of what your team is going to be, then you can answer that with more of a detailed answer. But because they asked the question and we are where we are, I'll answer it. And I think you hit on some good points. When you have the guys you have locked up, you have your top tier guys locked up. Yeah, you're always in the discussion. You always will be. As long as Nathan McKinnon is part of this team, as long as Cale Makar is part of this team, as long as Mika Renton is part of this team, you're going to be in that discussion. So for that aspect, yes. Now you got to see what the all the Robins to their Batmen are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And but even without having those guys signed, whoever they may be, I mean, the Avalanche will be in the discussion. Will they be the favorite? Maybe not. Maybe not. But will they be in the discussion? Yeah, I think they will be.
And I know we're sitting here as Avalanche fans looking our wounds that the season is over. But look around. There's going to be 31 other teams doing the same. Not too much time. And there are going to be teams that say, you know what, we just don't have the core like the Avalanche do. They don't have the core to do it. They'll blow up the team. They'll add a couple pieces here and there. Power's going to shift. Power's going to drop. Like Suter's already been fired in Calgary. Like the moves they're being
already
made.
happening. They're already
So
happening.
power will be shifted. So with all of those variables around you, you're still confident in the core that Colorado has.
Definitely. So, and honestly, as a fan, like that's all I really want. Like, yeah, if you have the best team going in, that's always nice, right? But being a fan of any team, you always want to be in that conversation of being able to, that they're always going to be in the discussion of they can make a run. So being the top team, the Avs had that. They had that title for a few years. They had it going into this year.
Look at Boston.
Yeah. And Boston's that's going to be an interesting team to watch for next year too.
Yeah.
So even heading into the playoffs, according to FanDuel, our good friends at FanDuel, next to Boston, the Avs had the best odds to go to the Stanley Cup and win it again. So I don't know. Like, you have to see how things will change with this team. But like I said, being a fan of a team that's in the discussion, that makes me happy.
Oh yeah.
So, let's see here. We got. It's just a bunch of letters. I don't really think it spells anything in his name. RYN.BVRS.
Ryan Beavers.
There you go. Is it Ryan Beavers? Ryan Beavers?
Yeah, he's a YouTube commenter.
If that's I don't know if that's his full name or that's what we're calling him then, I guess.
You're now my friend.
Yeah. Just for fun, early speculation. Which guys do you think played their last game in an Avs sweater? We kind of touched on this a little bit the other day. We were talking about UFAs and kind of guessing who would be back and who wouldn't be back, but maybe make a prediction that I'm going to hold you to for the rest of your life right now.
EJ.
Okay.
Helm.
Okay. Who?
Jack Johnson.
A lot of people think he's going to come back at a low number. Like, we were talking the other day. Well, he's got to come back at a low number. He's not going to come in at a high number. When we were saying talking about both of them, EJ and JJ, we were saying like, well, you don't want two guys at that age both playing on your defensive unit, but is one of them okay? I don't think you want both of them. And if one of them, which one would you want? Man, it's weird to say this, but I thought Jack Johnson maybe played a little bit better than Eric Johnson. And was Eric Johnson not a healthy scratch late in the season? But because there was injuries, he was like a last minute addition.
Was that not game one?
It was either game one or like the last game of the season. I can't remember right now, but it happened. It was not that long ago. We'll say that. Yeah, he was a healthy scratch. Eric Johnson was. So yeah, I think maybe you've probably seen his last day in an Avalanche uniform, which is upsetting. But
I think you're done with the aged players after you've seen the speed that Seattle has. I don't think you can get older and slower and make it in this league anymore.
Yeah, and for Eric Johnson, that's definitely true. Oddly enough, I don't think it was true for Darren Helm. Darren Helm still had the speed. Now it's just the injury part. And he's 36 years old, going on 37. Well, he won't be 37 until January. So he's 36, just nonstop injuries for him last year.
He was a seasonal employee. He wasn't even part-time.
So yeah, I'm with you on the Eric Johnson. I'm not 100% sold on the Jack Johnson one. Because I just have an outside feeling that he could potentially be back. I think Helm has. And who was the other one that you threw out there?
I had both Johnsons. I had Helm.
I think that was it, right?
Yeah.
What about Cogliano?
I was on the fence about Cogliano, but I don't think he wants to go out like that.
Yeah, and he's another one. He's 35 going on 36. So how many of these guys do you keep? Like, the Avs used to be like the youthful team.
Yeah.
And now they are kind of like in that middle of the road team, but they got a lot of aged veterans. And I think, man, like, how many do you don't want to get rid of all of them, but you might have to cut ties with a few of them. So
Avalanche, you spell avalanche with 2 A's, and you also have AARP.
So it's a good question, and it's definitely one that there's going to be a few.
Yeah.
There's going to be a few. All right. Let's talk. Well, let's fill in a break here, and then we'll bring up the last one. Thanks, Biz Nasty, for bringing this up. So, all right, let's get to it. Why not? Let's just do it right now. So we got this is from Love Them Broncos.
Let's
and
ride.
Yeah, Biz Nasty seems to think the Avs trade for Sidney Crosby. What would the Avs need to give up in order to make that work? Half of the team that you don't have right now, like all of those UFAs that you don't have signed, just give them to Pittsburgh. And like, nah, I don't see how this works. Crosby, I don't have he's making like almost 9. I think he's like making, I'll bring it up. But first of all, Pittsburgh has never said they want to get rid of him. Sidney Crosby has never said he wants to leave there. So this is all just, I think this is Biz just doing, he makes 8.7. That should be easy to remember, is his number. I think this is him just wanting to bring shock value to something and throw something out on social media or when he was on TNT. And then now what happens? People just flock to it like piranhas. And now, I mean, we were going to have to hear this anyway, but I think because Pittsburgh missing the playoffs last year for the first time in Crosby's career, everybody thinks they're just going to blow that up. And that includes getting rid of Sidney Crosby. I don't see it happening this year. Not at all.
Well, I know they've cleaned house in management, got rid of. They're doing the clean out there. You don't know if Gino's going to stay around. You don't know what the rest of that team's going to look like. Does Sid the kid want to stay around and pass the baton like Super Mario did to him? You don't know, but that's all Sidney Crosby's deal. Speaking of, we're locked on Avalanche here. And for the Avalanche to make sense of this, there honestly is no, I don't understand why they would want to do this. Like, why would you bring on?
No. I would do it.
No, if you're paying him like $3 million, you have a team to put together. We're not in the business of going out and landing the big guys. We got a team to put together with not that much money to do it with.
Right. I mean, it would have to be you get a third team involved 100%, where Pittsburgh keeps 50%, the other team keeps 25. It would have to be that. You cannot take on that contract. I mean, or even if Pittsburgh kept half, I mean, if Pittsburgh kept half and another team kept 25, that's the jackpot. Yeah. If Pittsburgh would only keep half, that obviously brings you the 4 range. That's doable. But it's not the contract. It's not the money so much. It is. It always is. I think you could figure out the money. It's what Pittsburgh would want in return for him that the Avs just wouldn't touch with a 20-foot pole, because you're going to have to give up a ton. You're going to have to give up draft capital like you wouldn't believe. You're going to have to give up prospects like you wouldn't believe, and maybe even a current roster player or two. And no, they're not going to take Alex Newhook. I know a lot of people are probably thinking that. You don't give Kyle raises his hand. They are not taking a prospect like Alex Newhook. Bo Byram, that's who they would ask for without a question. And I'm not giving him up for Crosby, who's got what, 3-4 years left in the tank.
I was all eager about shooting this one down, but the same manner that we answer the question of how do the Avalanche look going into next season, do they have a chance for the cup? I'm going to reserve my 100% lockdown answer to the Sidney Crosby question until we hear from Gabe Landeskog.
You might be onto something there.
If he says, hey, I'm going under the knife again, this season might be up for grabs, but I might be back the year after or something. I'm completely done with the game of hockey. My body just can't hold up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That is when things get interesting. And the Sidney Crosby question makes a little bit more sense.
It makes a lot more sense because it would be. Yeah. So what are you saying with, let me ask you, what are you saying with Landeskog? Just another year or his career? What are you saying?
Honestly, at this point, I think the career is on the line with the conversations and the scuttlebutts around it.
Mhm.
I think that's what we're waiting on. Are we going to do another surgery? Is it worth the wait? Because he's also putting this in mind, like, are we going to do another year of missing?
Well, I think you can get to the career conversation if he does miss another year, right? If he misses another year with the same, for the same reason, then you have to start asking questions like, is that thing ever going to heal?
Yeah.
I think that's a fair question to ask when that time comes, if that time comes, if he's out for a second consecutive year. And I think if he doesn't start the season on time, people are going to be asking that question immediately. And I think that's a little bit premature.
Well,
But give him the season. I know that's a lot to ask before you start going down that road, but go ahead, continue.
we've heard that he wasn't going to be joining the team for the playoffs. We never heard he is going to be fresh as a daisy for the regular season.
Yeah.
Like, you've never heard when we will see him. We know when we won't, but not when we will.
Right. But the thing is, like, he's not going to announce like I'm retiring at any point during the next hockey season. I don't feel like that's coming. He's going to try like hell to get back out on that ice. So I don't think that's coming. Let's just say it does happen. That's $7 million gone because he's retired. So sure, then you can go do something fun and exciting. Maybe like go get a Sidney Crosby. But again, this goes back to Pittsburgh is not. Yeah, are they retooling a little bit? Sure, they missed the playoffs. They have to. Sidney Crosby is a part of that retooling. You're not going to get rid of Sidney Crosby in part of their retooling. He is the face of that franchise, and he is one of the faces of the NHL. He brings in so much money for that franchise and the league. They're not going to give that up, and they're not going to give it up for prospect, even if it was Bo Byram. And please don't start running around saying like, "Oh, Locked On Avalanche said trade Bo Byram for Sidney Crosby." No.
If you do, that was Chris.
I'm throwing out the hypotheticals here. Even if you did do that, Bo Byram is nowhere near can be the face of a franchise like Sidney Crosby is and has been his entire career. I get it, and the connection clearly is because of Crosby and McKinnon and their friendship. That doesn't mean if Pittsburgh does want to get rid of him, he's coming to Colorado. Pittsburgh's going to do what's best for their franchise, not just put Sidney Crosby with his buddy.
Because
how it works.
If we were going off friendship alone, Tyson Barrie would have been one of those that came back to get the band back together. He still hangs out with Nate all the time.
Yeah, right, 100%. So it's their business decisions here, and it doesn't revolve around friendship. So I don't see it happening this year. I've always said this isn't just about Sidney Crosby. I feel it's about like a lot of athletes. If they get to the end of their career, and they only have a year or two left, like and Crosby's won championship, so he wouldn't be leaving for a championship. He'd be leaving because if Pittsburgh's on the outs and they're in a decline, hey, put me somewhere where I can go win another one maybe. That's when you might start seeing chirpings of Crosby to Colorado or anywhere else. And at that time, which is probably 3-4 years from now, we don't know where the Avalanche are going to be. We're hoping that they're still going to be relevant. They should be with all the guys that they have in our contract, but we have no idea. So this talk will never go away until Sidney Crosby retires. It will not go away. And if Pittsburgh starts out poorly and they have a poor season, it's only going to get amplified. And I just don't see it happening this year or next year or the year after that.
I'm going to hold off on that. I'm I'm starting to warm up to it even the more it marinates.
I'll say I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah,
I am
I
not.
wouldn't be
I
either.
would be totally for it. But I just don't think Pittsburgh's in that state of mind right now. They know what they have in him, and he's a generational player, and he continues to be. Even if his numbers aren't what they used to be, but they're close. He's still producing very, very much. So it's one of those things where I think for a lot of Avs fans, it's a pipe dream right now, but they'll hold on to it. So. All right. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. We're going to try to get it together, but we might be doing a crossover with our good friend, Mr. Adam Denker from Locked On Lightning. Why not do a crossover with the two teams that were in the Cup final last year and we're out in the first round? What went wrong for these two teams? Why not join in the misery with Mr. Denker? So I think that might be coming Friday. We'll see. But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. We always appreciate that. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys later.